A second term is often a president's chance to cement a legacy. For Donald Trump, it has become a crucible of controversy. From mismanaged deportations and compromised national security to the questionable politicization of disaster relief and climate science, the Trump administration's second term has emerged not as a period of steady leadership, but as an experiment in governance by disruption. While some hail this as a bold resistance to bureaucratic inertia, others see a government teetering on the edge of dysfunction. Few stories better encapsulate the human cost of administrative errors than that of Kilmar Abrego Garcia. A legal resident of Maryland, Garcia was mistakenly deported amidst the administration's aggressive crackdown on undocumented immigrants. Despite the Supreme Court ruling in his favor, the White House has made little effort to facilitate his return. In what began as a minor tech gaffe and spiraled into a national security scandal, Defense Secretary Pete Hegseth's use of signal chats to share sensitive information caused waves across the Pentagon. Leaked transcripts suggested that information had been shared in multiple private chats, raising questions about internal communication protocols and loyalty within the Department of Defense. Hegseth's actions triggered a quiet purge of his allies from key defense posts. This internal restructuring, done under the guise of restoring integrity, only deepened concerns about transparency and politicization. For national security analysts, the episode underscored a worrying erosion of institutional norms under Trump's leadership. When Harvard University sued the administration over an ambiguous and unsolicited letter related to student visa policy, it wasn't just a legal scuffle. It was a referendum on bureaucratic chaos. Education Secretary Linda McMahon later conceded that the letter had been sent prematurely, but the damage was done. The case illustrated a deeper issue: the administration's penchant for announcing policy by provocation, sometimes without due diligence or interagency coordination. While some insiders defend this approach as fast-paced innovation, critics argue it bypasses essential checks and breeds confusion across the legal landscape. No agency perhaps better reflects the instability of the second term than the Internal Revenue Service. In under 100 days, multiple acting commissioners resigned, citing disagreements with the administration's decision to share taxpayer information with immigration authorities. The resignation of Gary Shapley, a whistleblower who alleged obstruction of an investigation into Hunter Biden, added gasoline to a political fire. The IRS, traditionally seen as an apolitical institution, was suddenly at the heart of a partisan storm, reinforcing fears that foundational government services were being weaponized. President Trump's economic strategy has long been centered on tariffs, both as a weapon and a bargaining chip. In his second term, the strategy deepened, with retaliatory tariffs aimed at China sparking both market volatility and confusion among economic advisors. While Treasury Secretary Scott Bessent publicly reassured investors, privately, administration officials were reportedly divided on the long-term logic of these moves. Economists warned that the policy was more performative than strategic, often lacking follow-through and clarity. As with other areas, short-term political optics appeared to trump long-term planning. Elon Musk's appointment as head of the Department of Government Efficiency, or DOGE, was initially seen as a tech-savvy outsider move, in keeping with Trump's disruptive ethos. But, the honeymoon was short-lived. From the abrupt cancellation of Ebola prevention efforts to the firings of experts in nuclear safety and cybersecurity, only to rehire them weeks later, DOGE became a case study in how disruption can slip into dysfunction. Musk's own admission of growing pains did little to assuage critics who viewed the agency's inconsistency as a threat to national resilience. Some of the administration's most controversial actions weren't mistakes. They were deliberate. Reports surfaced that climate scientists were instructed to downplay or omit findings related to global warming. Simultaneously, budget cuts gutted early childhood education programs like Head Start, disproportionately affecting low-income families. The political slant became most evident in disaster relief allocation. Analysis showed a bias in favor of GOP-led states, with Democratic regions receiving slower or reduced aid packages. Critics accused the administration of turning humanitarian relief into a political tool, a dangerous precedent with long-term consequences. Despite the controversies, Trump's core base remains remarkably loyal. Many view these missteps as mere growing pains in an effort to drain the swamp. Senator John Kennedy's remarks on Meet the Press summed it up. These are not signs of collapse, they're the friction of revolution. This sentiment reflects a deep division in how governance is perceived in 21st century America. Is it about stability and precedent, or about disruption and reinvention? Trump's second term has forced this debate into the mainstream, challenging assumptions about the role of the presidency itself. At the heart of it all lies a philosophical rift. Traditional governance relies on predictability, institutional memory, and procedural rigor. Trump's model prizes spontaneity, loyalty, and public spectacle. The administration's defenders argue that traditional systems were so entrenched in inertia that only a wrecking ball could create space for innovation. Critics, however, see the chaos as corrosive, a degradation of the trust and coordination needed for effective governance. Academic analyses increasingly frame Trumpism as a test case for governance by fire, the idea that intense, unpredictable pressure can catalyze transformation. But as the evidence of systemic damage mounts, the cost of such experimentation becomes harder to ignore. As the administration stumbles toward the final chapters of its second term, the consequences of its actions are only beginning to surface. Federal agencies hollowed out, public trust diminished, international alliances frayed. Yet for many supporters, this is not a bug but a feature, proof that the old ways are gone and a new order is emerging. What remains unclear is whether this order will be durable or whether it will collapse under the weight of its contradictions. The Trump administration's second term has become a Rorschach test for American democracy, revealing as much about the system itself as it does about the man who leads it. It's easy to dismiss the Trump administration's second term as a circus of gaffes and grievances, but that risks missing the deeper story, a presidency intent on redefining governance through chaos, disruption, and loyalty. Whether this model survives, or whether it ultimately consumes itself, will be one of the most consequential questions of our time. History will judge not just the decisions made, but the ethos behind them. And in that judgment lies the future of American governance.